Playing Yu-Gi-Oh can be expensive, with multiple staples being around $5 to $10 a copy, certain cards being $50 to $200 a set, and mini reprints only occasionally happening in megatens or random side sets every year. It's very difficult to get into the game. But what about budget players? The poor souls that only have so much money every week to put into the game, can they even compete? I think so, and I want to show you how you can too. Showcasing multiple deck lists I've made up from $30 to $150, I aim to show you how you can improve any deck over the time and make it competitively viable. This is Budget Breakdown.
The 25th anniversary set. It's insane. Hello, this is Budget Breakdown, the show where everything that I talked about previously being really expensive and outside everybody's budget no longer matters because of the 25th anniversary rarity collection. Oh my god, this set is so good and it fixes most of the budget player problems. Today, I want to show off S-Force, a really good deck that actually benefits off this a lot, thankfully, because now everything in this deck is below $100 now. The deck is absolutely insane, and some of the best cards in this deck are what we're going to talk about today, show off some really simple games on how it's played, and of course show you a improved version where you can have a little bit more budget and a little bit more play money. But first, let's off the cards that actually matter and are a little bit important, starting with the Rappachiamaru. Rappachiamaru is an amazing card where quick effect, you can banish a card from your hand or grave that's an S-Force, return this card to your hand, and then summon another S-Force from your deck. Usually that will be the next card on our list, Gravantino, which is a card that lets you add an S-Force card from your deck to your hand. It's absolutely insane, and based off what I believe is the side-frame cards. The card you'll be searching on Gravantino most of the time will be S-Force Chase. S-Force Chase is basically a multiple bounce depending on how many S-Force monsters you have. Most of the time you'll have 2 to 3, and those are just enough for this card to be super positive. It is a very good control card. Some of the other cards in this deck that absolutely help the strategy play off as well as it can is S-Force Edge Razor. If you can summon this guy, you should summon him and then summon Rappachiamaru off of him. It absolutely benefits the deck extremely well and keeps a body on field. If you cannot tell, these all do have column-based effects to stop something your opponent does, but they all just do something not enough for me to actually warrant them being discussed, except very certain ones, which we'll get to when we get to them. We also have Parallel Exceed because having this card in hand absolutely is a positive and will be great for continuing plays. Usually you'll be either doing the rank 4s or we're doing a simple link to it IP. Lapswell. This is pretty much your Monster Reborn on a monster. Very good card if you can summon him out off of like Rappa or some stuff for like follow-up. Over that, Platina is a Monster Reborn, but instead of being from a grave, it is instead from the banish pile. We also have our favorite lad, Dimensional Shifter. Next card, Dog Tag. Dog Tag is the one that you will be playing for the Floodgate effect. Your opponent can activate the effects of monsters in the same column as your S-Force monsters. This card is so good with that, but the bonus effect of this card is if your opponent summons a monster while you control an S-Force monster, you can actually summon this card from your hand. Next we have Orifice. You're organized target any monster in the same column as your S-Force monsters with card effects. Pretty good card usually. And when the monster your opponent controls activates this quick effect, you banish one S-Force from your hand, destroy that monster. Good! Of course, our few little bits of interaction, Ash Blossom and Imperm. Retroactive is a microcoder in the hand, but also lets you return it back to the hand itself to summon a level 2 or higher S-Force monster from your hand. Very good. Prosperity. Normally this would not be any budget breakdown video, but thankfully because of the rarity collections, this card will be immensely dropping in price. Currently it is sitting at around $40. I don't expect this card to be above $5 when the set comes out. Reinforcement of the Army. Terraforming because you do like your field spell, we'll get to that very shortly. Called by the Grave because we need the last slot to be filled. Showdown. Showdown is surprisingly a card that I do like playing at 3, mostly because it is a good extender in hand if needed. If your opponent has somehow a way to get rid of a monster on your field before you can get to the link 1, we'll get to that card very shortly. This card actually is a good way to summon another monster to your field. Next up, the field spell that I was talking about a second ago. When this card is activated, add an S-Force monster from your deck to your hand. This is a good way to get Rappachiamaru because now you technically have 8 copies of Rappa. Very good card. When an opponent declares an attack to one of your S-Force monsters, while this card is in the same column as them, you activate this effect, monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. Very good card. But you can only use each effect of its card once per turn. Next, the extra deck, because that's where we care more about. Our first extra deck monster is Night Chaser. Night Chaser is absolutely insane for this deck because first off, it's a link 1 that only requires an S-Force monster. During the main phase, you can shuffle an S-Force monster you control back to the deck and then summon one of your banished S-Force monsters at the field. Very good card. Of course, we have IP. IP is surprisingly fallen way down in price because of just how often it's getting reprinted now, which is very good because it is necessity for further upgrades you will see along the lines. Security Dragon, Isolde, Two Tails of Noble Knights. Very good card because once again, you do have Warrior. Nightmare Unicorn, nice card, I will say that. Definitely a weird card that doesn't come up as much as you think it would, but does come up still. Heat Soul, if you want to draw 2, this is the best way to do it. Decode Talker. Surprisingly, I am playing Deco Talker in a lot more decks, mostly because the negation it activates is pretty good for link-based strategies. The main boss of S-Force Next is S-Force Justify. As you can tell from its arrows, it is actually pointing only at your opponent's column. Its effect is to quick effect and negate an opponent's monster, then move it to a zone this card points to, which is very good because once per turn, at the damage step of when it battles, it can actually banish all monsters this card points to. Very useful in a good long grind game or when you want to just wipe up the field. Boral Sword, this is your way to OTK when you're on a budget, very good card. Abyss Dweller and Baguska. Currently on the side, not very necessary, but you can choose to play these cards if you wish to. There can be only one, evenly matched, Deck Lockdown, BD Crow, and Nibiru. All these cards are being reprinted in Rarity Collection or are already cheap. Exclusively discussion why I'm not playing Druid Swarm in this slot. I'll show you a quick game where I played up against an AI, just to show you what this deck can do if left to its own devices. Woo! Now, as you can tell, that was a pretty exciting way to play the deck. I think it was a really good way to show off what the deck can do as a budget option without you getting access code, SP, which will be great cards, which you'll be literally just switching out these two Boral Swords and Salats for exactly those two cards. Other than that, the only crazy upgrades you really need for this deck to be the best deck it could be would be for Droll and Lockbird, which is a very cheap card in comparison to everything else in this list now, which is only about $5. Surprisingly not being reprinted in the Rarity Collection, but still a good card to pick up when you can afford it. Just picking up SP Little Knight when you eventually can get to that card, or if you somehow pull it, and also access code. But hey, that's all. This is all of the budget build. We'll do a quick game with the full power build against Labyrinth, and I'll show you what that's like, and you can form your own opinions at that. Other than that though, hope you all had a good one. See ya!